Back during the impoverished 1930s, folks used it in everything: frying, baking pies, biscuits, cookies, preserving their other foods, especially meat. Food I'm talking about is lard. Because it's so long-lasting, it should definitely find its way to your long-term food stockpiles. Here's how you make it. It all starts with a superior quality fat source, such as the pork belly. To render it, you want to cut it into strips, place it into a pot with a little water at the bottom of the pot. The water will keep your fat from getting too brown during the rendering process. Place the pot over low heat and let it work. Do not rush this process. You want the fat to slowly melt off like this. Once you've rendered all of the fat, strain it through a fine sieve and store it. There are a few methods for storing lard long-term, and they all depend on the level of convenience you're looking for. Keep in mind that lard was just one of the many foods our grandparents had to invent to keep themselves well-fed during hard times.
Today I'm going to show you how to make the most reliable, long-lasting, portable, and highly nutritious food in the world. It'll last indefinitely without refrigeration, so you can easily stockpile it for emergencies. To make your own Spam, first cut a pork shoulder in steaks like this until you reach the bone, and then keep cutting around it. Next, simply cube up all the meat like you would for stew. Now, once you're done, move on to the ham and repeat the process. When both the ham and meat are cubed up, spread them out evenly onto a baking pan and stick it in the freezer for 45 minutes or so. Now, after the meat is cooled for 45 minutes, take it out and pass it through a meat grinder. First the ham and then the pork shoulder. And once it's all ground up, add the slurry on top. Spread it out and pack down the mixture into a bread pan. Now, place the smaller pans into a bigger pan filled with water and wrap the smaller pans with aluminum foil. Place everything into a preheated 250-degree oven for 3.5 hours. Now here's what it'll look like at this stage. And I have to say, for me, this looks, smells, and tastes even better than the original version.
We no longer know how to live without refrigerators, without cars, without phones, or without supermarkets. What will you do tomorrow if you simply are unable to buy things? I sometimes even think we're kidding ourselves with our bug-out bags and with our 3-day food rations. If your life depended on this, what bug-out bag would you take with you? I know I would stick with what the pioneer had with him. I don't want to see our forefathers' knowledge disappear into the darkness of time. If you care for your family and what America stands for, then neither should you. With this idea in mind, 15 years ago, I wanted to do something that hadn't been done before. Something that not only would help me survive a crisis without investing a fortune in stockpiles, but something that I could do around my house on a daily basis, using only methods that were tested and proven by our forefathers for centuries. So I came up with this great idea to edit all my manuscripts, to turn all this lost knowledge into one of the greatest books of this century. The Lost Ways, saving our forefathers' skills. By knowing the ways of our forefathers, believe it or not, you're covered for anything. You'll never have to spend money on any prepping material again. Forget about unreliable and expensive modern survival equipment. Why even bother reinventing the wheel when these things have been working right for centuries? The Lost Ways prepares you to deal with worst-case scenarios with a minimum amount of resources, just like our forefathers lived their lives, totally independent from electricity, cars, and modern technology whatsoever. Which means you'll be able to be bulletproof against the ever-increasing threat of electromagnetic pulse, a powerful economic breakdown, famines, and natural disasters. You'll have the power to protect and save your family, even to rebuild your community during the worst of times. And the best part is, you don't need to wait for a disaster to happen. The self-reliance our great-grandparents had will help you save hundreds of dollars every month, starting from day one. Again, don't take anything for granted because we're living in good times now. Our grandfathers and great-grandfathers were the last generation to practice the basic things that we call survival skills now. There are only a few moments in life when you can really do something big. This is one of them. Take advantage of this presentation while it's still up and save the lost ways by clicking on the button below. You're the only one that can change something.
This is probably the only edible and medicinal tree that should grow in every American backyard. Our forefathers would use the slippery inner bark to make food and medicine. They also ground the bark to make a paste and preserve meat year-round. It's said that George Washington's troops survived the winter of Valley Forge by eating a gruel made from it. Poultices made from the same tree covered the gunshot wounds of his soldiers. Powdered bark helped with burns. There is no doubt that slippery elm, as the tree is known, can help you and your family during hard times. A tree is just a tiny, tiny part of everything our grandparents knew about who lived through hard times. With this book, I've tried to save all of their lost survival wisdom for ourselves and for the next generation. Click on the link below to discover more interesting things from The Lost Ways, the only book that saves our grandparents' survival knowledge for the day may come when we need it once more.